Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Heermans, and I am SVP of User Experience and Product Management at SONIFI Solutions. I'm pleased to welcome you to the International Luxury Hotel Association's webinar on how technology is shaping the future of luxury hospitality. Today's webinar is brought to you by SONIFI. We have just a great panel joining us today. It has been so fun to get to know more about this group, and they have very diverse backgrounds and experiences. First, we have Alan Hurd. Alan is the Director of Facilities and Capital Improvements at Pacifica Hotels, where he oversees 35 properties in California and Hawaii. Alan has nearly 4 decades of extensive experience in operations and project management, including his current role of working with teams to develop and renovate hotels, implement technology, and improve property conditions and safety. Next, we have Brian Nuestro. Brian is the Vice President of IT and Cybersecurity at Marc and Rose Hospitality and has more than 20 years of IT experience in multiple industries. As part of his vision to use automation and AI for better efficiencies and guest experiences, Brian and his team have moved Marc and Rose Hospitality to a fully cloud environment, along with projects that improve security, applications, hardware, software, and infrastructures in hospitality. Finally, we have Shannon McCallum. Shannon is Vice President of Hotel Operations at Resorts World Las Vegas. She oversees the strategic direction of all hotel functions to create an environment that enhances the guest experience, generates revenue for the property, motivates employees to perform at their best, and reinforces a brand reputation of service excellence. Shannon has more than 30 years of experience in the hospitality industry and was named as one of the top 100 hospitality professionals in the US by Global Hospitality magazine. Thank you, panelists, for being here. With such diverse experience, backgrounds, and organizations, I'm excited to hear your insights on technology in luxury hotels. Before we get started, I'd like to provide a quick overview about SONIFI. SONIFI's core mission is to simplify technology to help hoteliers achieve their goals. For over 40 years, SONIFI has been the leader of innovative guest engagement solutions, including interactive TV, free-to-guest, streaming, and guest internet. Today, SONIFI has roughly 1.1 million hotel rooms under management, which impacts 300 million travelers each year. SONIFI has partnered with technology leaders and innovators, including Google, LG, Samsung, and DirecTV, to best serve our customers. These partnerships enable us to deliver personalized guest experiences that are right for each hotel brand. SONIFI prides itself on being an innovation and technology leader. Today, our engineering team is the largest in the industry and has successfully received over 40 patents and completed numerous integrations. For more information about SONIFI's technology solution, please visit sonify.com. Okay, with that, let's turn over to our speakers and jump in and get started. So, technology is a part of almost everything that we do, and it's so essential to the travel experience, from research and booking, to physically getting to your destination, to making the most of your time away. That's true no matter where you're going. But let's talk today about the unique considerations in the luxury space and how to create memorable, bespoke experiences that appeal to the discerning tastes of luxury travelers. So our first question, why is guest technology in a luxury hotel especially important to prioritize? Shannon, maybe perhaps you could start us off.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you so much, Kara. You know, it used to be guests would come to our properties and they would be wowed by the technology we had because we didn't have the same kind of technology at home. But nowadays, guests expect to have something that is better than what they have at home. And they've got these huge TVs. So standard TV sizes aren't important or aren't as impressive anymore when they come to the hotels. Also, Wi-Fi is extremely important, and the guest expects to have the same quality of Wi-Fi that they have at home with the same kind of speeds. And often, instead of traveling with one device, they might have 4 per person and have 2 or 3 people in the room. So really being able to offer and really rise to the expectations of the guest is really important. And I know personally in my past experience, the gaps in Wi-Fi can be very much a dissatisfier for our guests when they stay with us, because they may not just be traveling for leisure. They may be wanting to have a webinar in their room, and they expect the service to be stable. The other thing that I have found as well is that they're using our televisions differently too. A lot of people cast their favorite TV shows and they bring them with them. So when they're traveling, they have all of these types of expectations. And I think in order for us to continue to exceed expectations in a luxury environment, we need to step up our game, and the pressure is on the hotels to do that.
Thank you. That's great. How about Alan? Do you agree? What are your thoughts here?
I fully agree with Shannon on that, but I think even more important is that it needs to work, and it needs to work well and consistently. And I think we also need to make sure that we're proactively monitoring and identifying problems before the guest finds them. We need to identify when there's an issue, we need to jump on it, and we need to make sure that when the guest comes in, all they have to do is literally plug and play and not spend a lot of time with the tech support trying to get their systems online.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I absolutely want technology to work for guests so it doesn't create a negative experience, and they're just able to sit back and enjoy. Okay, so we've been talking a little bit about guest expectations, and let's spend a little bit more time here. What are your guests expecting when it comes to technology at your hotel? Maybe Brian, could you share how you think about this at Marc and Rose?
Yeah, I mean, Alan kind of nailed it on the first question, is that when guests come to stay at any of our properties and any hotels, one of the first things that they expect to happen is that technology works, right? So with minimal interactions from themselves, other than just to plug and play, and in a world that's fully connected to whether it's their phones, it's social media, just at their fingertips, it has to work, right? So any first initial issues with that sets a horrible precedent with the guest experience at a hotel.
That makes sense. And when we were getting ready for the webinar, you talked a little bit about sometimes that latest and greatest just maybe isn't always the best thing to do, because you want to make sure that technology works.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I know a lot of at the Marc and Rose, there's a lot of department leaders that want the latest and greatest, but then I'm the one that has to push for proper testing plans and making sure that, hey, we can't just do this on day one. Let's make sure we make this the best experience for our guests by making sure we go through the proper channels of a test plan and making sure it works for the guest.
It's just interesting, that concept of maybe technology, at least the newest stuff, isn't always the right choice. We have to prove it out first and introduce it as it makes sense.
Exactly.
Alan, how about you? Your thoughts on this one?
No, I think like Brian said, we always want to have technology that's tested and proven, and we want to be on the cutting edge, but we don't always want to be the first to market. It's great when we have the time and the opportunity to test and vet and make sure that the technology works. But the last thing we want to do is get something that's cutting edge and then roll it out to our guests and have them have to work out the bugs and tell us where the issues are. So it's being first is great, but sometimes being second is better.
Shannon, how about you?
Well, from a guest services standpoint, because I'm always the one that's hearing from the guest, is that it can't be too complicated. So if we are looking at technology, and I use an example like when light switches changed and you needed to use an iPad beside the bed and guests were looking for light switches in the room, the guests can get frustrated if it's too complicated, and they join us to go on vacation and have a good time and not really to have to put their thinking cap on too much. So when we are thinking about new technology, we have to make sure that that user experience is approachable and intuitive. And I think that that's very important. The other thing too, when we're looking at new technology, we need to assess our structure, because especially with older hotels, you have to be able to look at the infrastructure that you have in place and can it support the new technology. And again, I'm the hotelier in the group here, and I'm always the one that's like, let's add this and let's add that. And my IT people in the past have been like, oh, wait a second here, like we're going to tax our network and then nothing's going to really work well, or if it does, it'll be really slow. So I think infrastructure is really important. And I've been very fortunate to work in a couple of brand new hotels. So I feel blessed that, I have the latest and greatest and a very strong infrastructure that allows me to be able to expand. However, not all hotels are at the same point. So I think that that's a huge consideration when you're trying to retrofit your property, because the project scope and the cost can really start to increase. So it's not just about the cost of the technology, it's about looking at the entire infrastructure to make sure that it stays within your project scope.
That makes a lot of sense from a pricing and budget perspective, and also from a guest experience perspective, right? Because you don't want to deploy something that works for 3 rooms, but not that 4th room or something like that. Yeah. I would just ask Alan, Brian, anything you'd like to add on that infrastructure note? As Shannon said, she's working with a lot of the newest technology. I don't know if that's true for both of you in your worlds.
Yeah, Marc and Rose, we're actually going through renovation at one of our premier hotel properties, if you will. And I know Alan and I have talked about this before, but I think the biggest challenge is retrofitting new technology to an existing infrastructure, whether it be non-technical infrastructure, but it could be the physical limitations of a guest room or the hotel itself. So that's something I've learned real quick in this position at some of our older properties. But from our side, from the technology side, is setting expectations for our leaders as we go through a renovation or we go through a new project or implementing a new solution that, hey, include this in your scope of work, because it's gonna take a little bit more money. It's gonna take a little bit more time to implement it to where you guys want it to be.
Well, I think Brian hit the nail on the head with the infrastructure. We've had projects where the cabling just to get the building up to standard is 2 to 3 times the cost of the equipment for the new technology. So it's being able to back into something that's workable and finding solutions that fit within the existing structure of the building versus basically pricing yourself out of a project that just becomes unviable and there's no definitive return on your investment for ownership.
Makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot to consider about that, where you're kind of balancing what guests' expectations are and what they want with the realities of our world. Okay, well, so we've talked about infrastructure here, and technology truly is everywhere. And sometimes it can be a bit of a challenge to prioritize where do you start. So let's talk a little bit about location. Where is it most important to have technology for guests? Alan, what do you see at Pacifica?
Well, we see a lot of people that are engaging with the app right up front. They start booking. A lot of people will book from the app on their phone, and then they'll use the digital check-in. They'll use the digital key program. But what we also find is that when they're in the hotel, they want it to engage with it in their room, and they want it to be easy and simple for them to connect to. If it's too complicated, then they tend just not to use it. And we've done a few programs where we've tried to, put technology in, and it takes too much training and effort to train the guest how to use it, and they just don't embrace it, and then it winds up going by the wayside. But what we find is that when it's simple to use and the guest can engage quickly and easily on something that they're very comfortable with, like their phone, such as looking at a QR code on the TV or a QR code in the room, that they can then engage with the application, and then they can order, they can, for the restaurant, they can go ahead and they can use it to find out information about the hotel. Then they tend to embrace it a lot more, and there's a much higher engagement and adoption ratio there. But basically, anything from the Wi-Fi system has to be simple to log on, simple to navigate. Anything on the TV has to be simple to understand. They just want a couple of buttons like they're coming home. You turn the power on, you hit the guide button, and your content is right there. They don't want to have to learn how to fly a plane in order to turn the TV on and watch the basketball game that evening.
That makes a lot of sense. Shannon, your thoughts here?
You know, I have to agree with Alan 100%. The guest room is really important. Everybody sleeps in the guest room when they're coming to stay at the hotel. So there is a very high expectation that there's going to be the technology that our guests are looking for in this space. In addition, I mean, for myself, I'm a large convention hotel. 39% of my market segment is convention. So we often overlook this area, but convention is critical because there's a lot of additional revenue that gets driven through the convention space. And there's a lot of pressure on the meeting planner in order to deliver upon the experience of those guests. And, you know, COVID brought us a lot of remote situations where maybe our speakers are not in the room, they're local, or you've got a program that you may have part remote and part in person. And having that technology work and having the Wi-Fi be seamless is critical, because the last thing you want is a speaker at the front of the room and their presentation video is not running. And that is not a great experience for the attendees. And it's, you know, it really can make or break repeat business for the future. Again, I agree with Alan. Any place where you've got guests waiting for things, whether that's on the phone, whether that's at the front desk, or whether that's ordering food, having some kind of an efficiency that will give your guests the option to do a mobile check-in instead of, you know, having to stand in line, or to order their food and beverage through an app or through a kiosk, to be able to control their experience is appreciated. And it's more widely seen. And so people are starting to expect it when they travel in other locations.
I love that. The more that they see it, then like you said, they expect it and it becomes familiar and it starts to address that education hurdle and everything. And what you said about conferences is important too, I think, right? Because it, like you said, it jeopardizes repeat bookings. It also tends to reflect poorly on both the property, but also the event holder. So there's a lot to think about there. Anything you would add, Brian?
Yeah, well, and so it's funny because, you know, Alan hit the nail on the head, and so did Shannon on the convention piece, because we have a lot of groups at one of our bigger properties. So kind of what she said, it's huge deal for our event managers, but also the guests and the customers that come in to have these meeting spaces. Wi-Fi is the single probably top 3 things that they're concerned for these spaces, right? But to take it a step further with some of these groups, what they do is they'll do pop-up food and beverage type of situations there. So for us internally to support these groups and have to be able to give them that is to have good Wi-Fi access to work with our handhelds for our POS system. So whether it's a pop-up terminal or the handhelds, something very important to be able to give the guests that opportunity to bring in revenue for us, obviously, and not push them to outside of the property. So that's a big deal for us to make sure that's working as well.
That's interesting, thinking about all the different types of devices and connections that are needed, for sure. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit now. We've talked a lot about the guest experience, but the reality is that employee experience matters just as much. That's really, truly where hospitality begins. So what role does technology play for your team? Shannon, how do you think about this at Resorts World?
You know, we're a large property. We've got over 3,500 guest rooms. And so efficiency is really important. And traditionally, hospitality is some of the tasks have been extremely manual, especially in reporting. So finding ways to have bots to do the predictive reporting, to be able to save time. Recently, we had changes in some of the fee structures at the property, and we were able to engage a bot to go ahead through all of the reservations that were, you know, prior to the date change, and have that process done, automated. So those are the kind of things that we look at all the time in order to free up our team members from having to go back and do that manual process. In addition, you know, something that I'm seeing and something that we have engaged is a digital concierge. And so, you know, answering phones, I mentioned before, guests hate waiting online or going into call queues. And so we're always looking for ways to reduce our abandonment on our phones and get to our guests more quickly. One of those ways is using AI on the phones, whether that be voice AI to answer our phones and to be able to take care of those very simple tasks, so that the more complicated ones can be escalated up to our team members, whether that be on the phone, but we also have a digital concierge that you can text and chat with as well, which our guests seem to really enjoy. And it can connect them to make reservations or book at Cabana and still take care of the guest in an alternate manner. Similarly, some of this technology does grow and learn. It's got AI involved in it, which of course increases the efficiency and can connect two different systems together. So if a guest is asking for towels, it can automatically put a ticket into a task for housekeeping to take towels to the guest room, which is a huge efficiency. Digital check-in, I talked about, another way to get our guests out of lines and enjoying themselves much more quickly. And they can go directly to their room if they so choose. If we've got a guest who stayed with us 10 times and they know the property and they just want to get to their room after traveling, it allows that path. However, with luxury, we also want to have a person there for that first-time person who's celebrating their anniversary, that wants to have a special experience and ask a lot of questions on arrival. So the technology allows us to be able to help the business traveler to be able to get to the room quickly, and also free up our front desk team or our concierge to be able to assist those guests with special occasions. The other thing is in-room dining. You know, I think, again, looking back to the pandemic, it changed the way that we do food service in some cases. And we've been able to engage with a technology that is like a food delivery service that you would have outside of the property, and be able to use it for our interior restaurants to be able to develop a wider food offering. Instead of just that Caesar salad or that clubhouse sandwich or burger, they can order from any restaurant. And we've got over 50 restaurants and lounges here at Resorts World. So the guests can create their own experience, which provides them with more opportunity to sample all of our specialty dining. So many different ways that helps the team members by not having them feel overloaded with tasks that can be routed and taken care of in a more efficient way.
Thank you. I mean, I really enjoyed several of your examples talked about how technology was solving for both guests and your team at the same time. I think those are great. But Brian, thoughts on this question?
Well, it's funny Shannon mentioned AI, because high tech was recently took place, and I have a feeling maybe we might be looking at that same solution that they're probably using. But combining what Shannon just mentioned and what Alan said earlier, using AI to be more efficient for our staff, right? To serve the guests better, make their jobs a little bit easier, have a better, dare to use the word work-life balance, if you will. But we take that in consideration, but also to combine what Alan said earlier about being more proactive from a IT standpoint or property management standpoint, where we should know when an issue occurs before a guest contacts us, right? So AI can help do that by directing, again, things like towels, or maybe there's a toilet that needs to get fixed. That is stuff that we can instantly notify our different departments so they can handle it in a quicker, more efficient manner. And then also, again, echoing what Shannon said about food ordering, whether it's online ordering, in-room service dining, we're implementing that as we speak in various different channels. But the bigger picture of it is also saving costs from labor, right? So that's always a constant conversation that we have at our properties in different areas, that we can kind of save some costs there, and not because we're not doing anything bad, but it's a thing that we can increase efficiency at, and ultimately what serves the guests better. So AI is truly the direction that things are going to, and it's up to the properties and the leaders of each of these companies on how to use it and use it in the best way possible.
Oh, that's great.
Well, I think to Shannon and Brian's points, it's being able to not only impact our employees, but impact our guests say as well by finding in better opportunities using that AI technology to harness and find where there are issues that are happening and proactively fix those issues and be able to engage before our guest does find those. I think also streamlining the communications and having a method of employees being able to seamlessly communicate with each other without the guests seeing the magic behind the curtain. You know, for them to be able to just say, hey, I thought about this, I asked for this, and then it was done. I didn't see anything. It just magically happened. And that's what impacted my stay in a positive manner.
That's great. Yeah, it's nice to see how these advancements in technology can really help across the board deliver that better guest experience, make things better for your teams. And so staying on this topic, just around new tech, whether we talk a little bit more about AI or maybe it's AR, IoT, smart tech, what impact does that have on the guest experience? Brian, maybe you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah, no, so kind of what we mentioned earlier, I think it's faster response times, faster getting better service to a guest quicker after they make that initial request or inquiry, right? So one of the things that we even get before we even get to a guest getting on property is something that Shannon mentioned is whether it's calls within a property or our reservation department, AI plays a big part of that now that there's offerings that, again, you're basically available 24/7 if built correctly, right? So it's again one of the solutions that we're I'm not gonna say not are just looking into. We're definitely going to do it because that first initial experience for our guests is negative when we just don't answer a call, and who knows what that call could have been for that we could have saved for, whether it's a group or an individual that was looking to stay for 7 days, right? So I think that's a starting point, and you can truly use it everywhere, right? So again, all this stuff that we're talking about right now is a huge overall overarching impact to our guests, but also our staff.
For sure. Shannon, your thoughts here?
You know, I love the fact that with AI, it continues to grow and learn. The generative AI, you know, using when we talked about voice and messaging with the guest, the system is actually learning as it goes, whether its answers are right or wrong, and it continues to edit and perfect, which I really love because it is continually evolving, and it's becoming more efficient as it goes. And one of the things too in such a large building that we find is how we're using technology differently than we were before. And communication is a big thing for us at the property, just because we're so large, 5,500 team members, and 70% of those are not on communication platforms like email. So how do you communicate across your team in an efficient way to let them know if an elevator's out or an escalator is under repair, or there's been an accident down the road and there's a road closure? And we use a great technology here that allows us to have something that's like Facebook for team members to be able to communicate out. But what that meant was a change in culture as well, because in the past it's been like, leave your phone in your locker, and I don't want to see you on your phone when you're in the workplace. Now we've got plans, floor plans and property maps on this system. And then we also have restaurant hours. So if a guest asks what time the restaurant's open, our team members can pull out their phone, and on their app, it'll give them all the most up-to-date information. So important in luxury service is always giving the right answer and having tools at your fingertips. And I think that the way that technology is evolving, it's allowing us to get better at that, but it is changing the way that we do service. And I think in traditional environments, that can be really uncomfortable, because some guests might think that the team members are on their phone texting their friends, or they're posting on Facebook. But when they see that they're using it in order to pull up the information they need, they begin to understand how nimble our properties are, and the fact that we are empowering our team to be able to utilize their device. in regards to finding out information. And I think that that is something that's new and different. And it's also about culture, and the team members feel good about having the information at their fingertips. And that helps for retainment and a positive employee culture as well. Another thing too that we're really seeing that's changing with this new digital culture is the way that we're doing our marketing. I know for us in Las Vegas, social influencers are becoming really important, and that's changing the way that we do traditional marketing. Having people come to the property and post their experience, and them having followers that want to come then to the property to have a similar experience or try out that sushi at that restaurant that's on property is really new and different. And for some properties, it is taking a little while for them to get their arms around the value of having social influencers coming, but that it's all about how to use technology in a different way, and to bring value to the property. So it's really exciting for me to see how it's changed in the decades that I've been in the business, because you're always growing and learning alongside the technology.
That's great to hear. How about you, Ellen?
Well, I think it's funny that we spent decades telling our employees to get off their phones, and now we're telling our employees to get on their phones. It's kind of counterintuitive, but to Shannon and Brian's point, having that much data and information readily available to assist our guests just helps enhance that overall experience for them. And I think when AI gets to that point of being able to identify, hey, John Doe's coming in this week, it's his birthday, he likes this cake, or he eats this type of food, well, we can start capitalizing on that. And it seems very Big Brother-ish, but I think that gives our guests the hidden wow factor, that they really are like, wow, this was fantastic. I checked in, I didn't say anything, but there was a double layer chocolate cake in my room when I checked in. And that's the first thing that I'm going to remember. And I'm going to talk about that when I talk about this experience. And it was also a mention of influencers being around so much. I think having that information that is now being marketed out and put out in the ethosphere so quickly, the ability for us to have those same tools and resources, that we can now have that information readily available and serve it up just as quickly as they can serve it out to the rest of the world. We want to be able to serve that information up to them. So I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity. And as AI continues to grow, I really look forward to where we're going to be able to capitalize on, helping our employees serve our guests in a much faster, more efficient and effective way, and then our guests being able to very quickly and immediately put that out into the world for people to see how great our hotels are. And it's very interesting watching the technology across generations as well, when so many people are thinking like, well, if you're older, you get your jitterbug phone and you don't really use this. But we see so often couples, families coming in and users that are in their 60s and 70s that are embracing technology just as much as the younger generation are, and they are just as proficient with it if it's simple and easy for them to engage and understand.
Oh, that's great. So it's really about thinking about that technology across the generations and using the new tech for accuracy, for personalization, for speed. I think those are such important components.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're nearing the end, and this discussion has just been so interesting and helpful and insightful for me, but we do have a few minutes left. So maybe we could take a moment and talk about one final thought that you have on our discussion today. So maybe, Alan, we could stay with you. What's your final thought here?
Well, I think we've got three examples, three of us from very different spectrums of the hotel environment, from large to small to luxury to, mid-range hotels. And we all face the same challenges. We're all dealing with the same technological issues. There's something that's very big, there's something that's great, that has a lot of potential and opportunity. But if we don't harness it correctly and we don't engage and train it properly, it's just going to make our life more challenging. So we really want to be able to, as an industry, be able to harness this technology, grow it to what's viable and workable for us, and then work together to implement this to help make, the guest experience a completely different experience than what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Thank you. Brian, your final thought.
Yeah, I think, echo what Alan said, is there's just so much out there, and with with depending on the size of your property and different leaders that are that are looking out what's out there, it's easy for everyone from outside of our seats to say, hey, we need this, we need that. But again, planning properly, testing properly, and making sure it's the right tool or feature that we can offer our guests it takes a while. It takes a good amount of time to vet it and make sure it's successful when we do offer it to our guests. On the bad side, it's you have to make sure that you do harness it correctly, like Alan said, and that you if it's ideal for your company, using it to its fullest to benefit your whole entire team, right? So we can talk about guests, but we internal team getting the leaders automated reports that are live data so they can make the best decisions quicker and faster to get to a point of choosing the right solutions for our guests, right? So I know we get a lot of that where I'm at right now is that we get a lot of questions of, well, should we be doing this? Should we be doing that? And trying to get these reports or trying to get the data that can make a good sound decision to bring the new tech to our guests and to our properties. So again, tools with AI, tools with all these other companies that have automation in it. It's out there and it's overall really great, but really has to take some planning and proper implementation tactics to make it successful in your workplace.
Thank you. Okay, Shannon, how about your final thoughts?
I would just say that technology is always evolving and we never have our arms around it. And our guests have very high expectations and they're interacting with technology every day. So it's really important as a hotelier to stay on top of what the latest trends are, read the blogs that are coming out, go to the conferences, understand what's new and different, and understand how it can supplement your business. And even if you're luxury, technology has a place. It's not there to replace guest service. It's to supplement it and to make it more streamlined. And that's what's going to bring your guests back.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a great place to wrap. I really enjoyed our discussion today, so thank you all so much for your time. And we'd also like to thank you, the attendees, for joining the International Luxury Hotel Association's webinar series. And if you found the webinar to be of value, please do share the recording. Recordings of past webinars can be found under events on ILHA's website, theilha.com. Thank you so much and be well.